How's it going, guys? It's Eclipse here, and we have two fantastic gameplays here on World of Tanks console for PS4 and Xbox One. Of course, if you play either of those, you'll probably want to have a look at this video. We have the Su-130 PM, the Tier 8 tank destroyer from the Soviet line. Of course, it's a premium because, you know, that's what wargaming do. If something's actually worth playing, it has to be a premium tank. And yeah, this is absolutely no different, at least with the current game meta anyway. This tank is absolutely one of the tanks that I just find absurd in the game. It has just everything that you could possibly want on a tank destroyer, and by God, does it actually compete within the game. It is probably one of the best tier 8 tanks in the game currently. It has two variants, so we have the Su-130 PM, and we also have the Shashka. They're both the same tank, essentially. One of them just has basically a permanent camo or skin or whatever you want to call it attached to it, so yeah, you don't have to pay for camouflage, is essentially what it is. Now, on the Su-130 PM, what is the key features? Well, it does have 520 alpha damage per shot, which makes this tank one of the highest alpha TDs at tier 8, at least with a decent reload, other than things like the ISU-152, which of course have the 750 alpha damage. This one is slightly less, but that's why you reload in just less than 10 seconds. Now, what's also perfect about this tank? Well, as you can see in the bottom right hand corner of the map, you see the actual camouflage of the tank. Now, when we stay stationary, when the tank is completely dead still, you will see that actually the white dashed circle in the minimap is actually small, very, very small in fact, that you have such good still concealment, which is basically what it is. So right now we are stationary, we have the still concealment go down significantly, which means that you can almost have double the spotting distance at which point tanks will spot you. So it's just utterly ridiculous, and already we've picked up 1,500 damage as we just kind of wait for the T54 mod 1 to show us his weak point. And yeah, we probably could have fired a little bit earlier, but you know, it's always good to secure the damage on the target that you're shooting at and make sure that they are out of the game as quickly as possible. Now, what are we doing on a map like El Alamein? Of course, this is one of the newer, or I say newer, but it's one of those maps that got released into the game as part of the most recent big update, I should say. And yeah, it's an interesting map. Certainly one of my favourites from the new maps that got released back into the game. Of course, they were revamped, so yes, they may not be necessarily straight new tanks. But yeah, definitely really, really good maps. I think that this is a key position on this map, and of course this is the team destruction mode as opposed to the standard battle where you've got cat circles and stuff like that, so you've got to play it a little bit differently. And in my personal opinion, taking this position, this hill position in a tank destroyer, or a tank with decent kind of accuracy at long ranges, mean that you can basically annihilate everyone. You have good vision with a tank like the Su-130 PM, and the ability to kind of move out of the way of shots as well means that, yeah, you're pretty much versatile in this position. You can defend it, you can keep it locked down, you can outspot opponents that are trying to advance on you, and then you can also defend yourself from behind, which you'll see in just a second. Now, of course, situational awareness. We have noticed that all of our friendly tanks that were behind us have now just been taken out of the game, and what we need to do now is deal some damage back to them, even if it means we lose a little bit of our hit points, because some people within the game don't realise that sometimes you actually have to lose hit points to be able to win the game and to deal more damage and just be a help to your team. Now, 3,173 damage done already. Is that a good game? Well, it's a fairly decent game, I'd say. But I mean, for the Su-130 PM, that's about 5 shots of damage, which isn't massive, but it certainly is nothing to sniff at. And when you're kind of in this position where there's still 9 opponents left on the enemy team, there's certainly potential for you to grab some extra damage within the game and just basically get yourself up to the high numbers within the game, get the high base XP, and maybe, just maybe, get a mastery badge. Now, you'll have to wait and see whether or not we actually pick up the mastery badge within this game, but there are certainly some aspects that I want to kind of highlight, want to be able to kind of show you what you need to be doing in a position like this and when you come into the games like this. Now, unfortunately, we get a little bit unlucky when we're looking at that Progetto 66 because we did only low roll by about 50 damage, which left him on like 6 hit points or something like that. And of course, now we notice that the Barask has come to try and take out this ISM on our team, or not the ISM, it's actually the Ball Breaker. But yeah, what we are doing now is just trying to defend this position. Now, some could say, yes, this is a bit of a campy position, yes, it's been a fairly campy game, but it's kind of what you have to do in a tank like this. I'm sorry to say, but if you're going balls to the wall in something like an SU-130 PM against heavy tanks on a corner, then yeah, you're not going to be doing particularly very well. Because, you know, 9 times out of 10 you have absolutely no armour. If someone has the ability or the knowledge to know that if they load HE rounds, they're going to be able to pen you, then yeah, you're going to be in a significantly horrible position. And when I say horrible position, yeah, you literally probably have about 12mm of armour on the turret, because it is just literally a sheet of metal as opposed to a proper turret. It does not have any angling really, and so yeah, you are going to be in a horrible position. Now, as far as this game goes, it's pretty much wrapping up to the end kind of quarter of the game. We've managed to bring back the game. We've managed to get it down to 5-3, and of course there are 2 light tanks left alive, which are a bit of a pain when you're in a kind of a turreted but only semi-turreted tank destroyer. And the SU-130 is certainly one of those. Yes, you don't have 360-degree turret, which means that yes, you are limited in a little bit of a way, but then again, you still have like nearly 180 degrees of traverse of your turret. Of course, unfortunately, what happened here is we get outspotted by the Vanguard, and instantly I'm thinking artillery is going to be looking somewhere around here at where we're going to be. And so, yeah, it's kind of important that we stay moving, that we try and find an artillery safe position whilst also trying to avoid the 2 auto-loading light tanks on the enemy team. And yeah, we know that the Vanguard and the other light tank are in a platoon together, so it's likely that they're going to be moving towards the same sort of position if they have kind of a little bit of a brain at least. And right, since they're the last ones alive, we've got to go towards them, otherwise what am I going to do? Our heavy tank on our team is advancing towards the artillery, so if he can take them out, that'll be a massive thanks for us at least, because when you've got no armour and artillery's in the game, you know what tends to happen. Now, light tank. We managed to hit the Tiger Shark. Unfortunately, we low roll by about 80 damage, which leaves him on a significantly more HP than I'd have liked. Of course, the Vanguard is also here, and he's making his way towards the railway tracks, and he's going to try and advance away. Of course, we are going to pre-aim, and bam, we actually managed to hit the Vanguard there, which is something that I didn't expect whatsoever. He went undetected just as we hit him as well. So yes, we did manage to pick up some damage, and yes, I did enjoy that shot very much. As far as trying to track down the Vanguard, yeah, we're not in particularly the best tank to be able to do that. And of course, when you've got a tiny little bit of lag, it probably doesn't help as well. So yeah, I've had pretty bad kind of connection to the internet for like the last couple of months, and so playing games that require a little bit of kind of, I don't know, responsivity, I don't know, sensitivity, I don't know. But yeah, it's been a bit difficult to be able to hit shots, especially on the lightly armoured, fast, mobile tanks that the Vanguard is as well, considering it's so small as well. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at in terms of the game. Of course, he tries to hit us on the move, which is very unlikely because the Vanguard isn't the best on the move, even with all of the perks that enable you to have better accuracy on the move. Now, there we go. We try and hit him with that shot. Unfortunately, we miss, and he goes undetected, which is really... I was actually quite surprised about that, considering we do have about 440 meters view range in this thing, and we have decent camo as well, so it's not like we have awful camo. Now, I'm expecting him to be moving up towards that kind of rock over to the right-hand side, so when he pops up on my right, I was very surprised, and unfortunately for us, we don't actually manage to get the last damaging shot. We just basically make some bad decisions. But we have picked up 5,135 damage within this game, and so I can't complain too much. Of course, the Vanguard's just trying to run for his life. I very much doubt he'll be able to pick us all up in one go, and yeah, we miss again. But luckily for us, the icebreaker on our team, Saxon Patriot, manages to take out the Vanguard and avoid him from just running away for the rest of the game. Now, yes, that was particularly a game that I didn't have to carry too much, I didn't have to do too much in the game, but it definitely showcased when you hit consistently in the SU-130 PM, it makes this tank become absurd. Of course, there wasn't too many engagements where we were continuously firing and picking up 5k in a scenario like that where, to be honest, we didn't have too many opportunities to get shots into opponents that had a lot of health left. So, yes, we could have got a couple more shots into things like the Barask, who got one shot by artillery, which is always really, really fun to see. I like seeing it when the slightly more meta tanks get taken out by the artillery, who, of course, is still the most meta tank in the game. So there we go, that's that gameplay. We will move into the second one in just a second to show you a little bit more about what the SU-130 PM can do when you come into a more competitive matchup like a tier 10 game. And here we are on Malinovka. This is one of my more favoured maps within the game. I think this one kind of offers a little bit for everyone to kind of get your hands on within World of Tanks console or Modern Armour or PS4, whatever you want to call this game, because there's so many abbreviations now. We have things like what PS4, we've got what console, there's just basically so many different changes of name that I think Wargaming have kind of, I don't know what to call this game. Do we call it Modern Armour? Do we call it console? Do we call it what, PS4, or do you call it Xbox? I don't really know, but that's kind of outside the scope of this video. Of course, we're trying to showcase the SU-130 PM and what you can do with it. Now, as far as we haven't talked about equipment, so I think that that's something we need to talk about within this game. And yeah, basically the equipment setup I've gone with is advanced optics. We've also gone with advanced concealment, which means that we can slap up that vision range, which allows us to detect opponents and get some spotting damage. And also the concealment allows us to stay undetected. Of course, that is what concealment's all about in World of Tanks. And yeah, if you increase view range, which means that you can spot opponents further away and then decrease the ability for you to get spotted, of course you're going to be having better games overall. Now, Dreadnought over there, he has had a stump of a game right there. He's just been absolutely stumped within, what, a couple seconds. And that's where you don't ever go that far in, where you're going to get hit. And, of course, you see what happens when people are caught out in the open on Malinovka. These are not the sort of places you want to be staying. These are not the sort of places that you want to be keeping still at. And, of course, that's what happens if you stay in the same position as when you're undetected. Of course, if someone has a brain, then yeah, of course they're going to fire where you previously were, and that's what you just saw there. Luckily, we did get quite fortunate with the fire there. We did set him on fire, which means that we could pick up 600 extra, or a couple hundred extra damage on top of the base damage of the tank, and of course we pick up that destroyed enemy, which means that we get a little bit more XP in this game. Now, I picked this game not because it's particularly the highest scoring damage game you'll ever see in World of Tanks, and especially not in the SU-130 PM, because trust me, I've played about 15 games and yeah, I'm averaging probably 3,000 damage per game. This tank is absolutely ridiculous, you know, when you have to consider it as only like taking 6 shots of damage to do 3,000 damage in total on average, then yeah, it doesn't take a lot. And if you put yourself in the right position, and since you've got 10-second reload in this thing, and if you've got enhanced combat rations, you can boost that up even more, making this tank just, it doesn't seem fair. It just doesn't seem fair. And if you ever get the chance to actually pick up this tank within the game, and you want a tank that just basically earns you silver consistently, enables you to have good games consistently, and you are just trying to kind of improve, learn the different mechanics, I think that this is a good one to kind of go for. Now, 2,000 damage nearly. And this is the point at which the game turns from a pretty mediocre average game into one that is going to pick me up a lot more XP, a lot more silver, and sometimes even when you do have these games where your team just absolutely stump the opponents, You know, it's 15-9 already. Yeah, it doesn't look like the enemy team is having any favours as we push another one back, making it 15-8. And yeah, I think that this is where you need to take advantage of knowing the tank, of knowing what kind of enemies that you're going to be coming up against, knowing when to be aggressive, and of course, yes, sometimes you may make the wrong decision, but if I stayed stationary, I'd have been sat on 1900 hit points, and I probably wouldn't have done all too much this game. And we did see the SU-130 PM was sat there, so once again, we aren't just going to, you know, let him go. We're going to take a shot. We're going to try and blind fire him and get that damage. And of course we do pick up that damage. And that is where you kind of get this change between some of the players that are kind of average within the game, and then you get the players that are a little bit more experienced, and they know that, yes, of course, you may be in a tank that goes undetected, but just because you're not spotted doesn't mean your tank isn't there, and you still can hit opponents. It's always worth, if you haven't got anyone else to actually hit, to have a shot at that blind opponent, to have a go. Of course, don't be silly if it's the last tank in the game on a 1v1. Don't go for a blind shot if you're very, very close and you don't know where they're going to be, or you have to hit the shot reliably, or if you fire and you miss, they're going to have a significant advantage over you. Make sure you do it in a position where you feel comfortable. Don't go overexposing yourself. Don't go being stupid like you're about to see me do in just a second. We decide, you know what, balls to the wall. We've got our entire opponents coming in. We need to get a little bit more extra damage. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to try and take out as much damage from the opponents in this game as possible. And unfortunately for us, they both went for me, because none of our team actually decided to come down, which I was very surprised about, but hey ho, we knew that was probably going to happen, and we got 2 shots of damage off extra on top of the amount of damage we did, taking the grand total up to about 5,400 damage combined, which for a game that lasts, what, 4-5 minutes in total, you know, that's not a bad result. And for me, 1,786 base experience, and of course, picking up 119,000 silver without any operations or boosts isn't bad either for the World War II game mode. Of course, we're not even going to compare that to the Cold War game mode on World of Tanks console. Now, there we go, big game, and of course, thank you very much to all of my team within that game to push up, and especially the Barask after I said to move up with me, and of course they obliged and gave me a little bit of a hand. So yeah, big game, big tank, and definitely one I would recommend to those of you who haven't tried out the SU-130 PM. It just kind of goes with itself. It basically drives itself. And if you're not completely silly and you go driving straight into all of the opponents all at once, then trust me, you can take out the opponents one after one. Yeah, I think that this tank is perfect for those of you interested in tank destroyers and learning the spotting mechanics, because it is a perfect one for that. And of course, you have the actual gun to be able to warrant, you know, staying back at the back of the map and dealing your damage from long range, as well as being able to push up when you need to outspot your opponents, and also just be a little bit more mobile. Thank you very much for watching. Of course, if you did enjoy the video, there are plenty more like it on the channel that you can have a look at. And once again, thank you very much for watching. Thank you all to the channel members for supporting the channel a little bit extra with, of course, your money, which is absolutely unbelievable. I can't believe some of you will actually put aside your money to pay towards being a channel member. Yeah, just crazy. Thank you very much for your support, and thank you very much for watching the video once again. Hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.